Who are some of the toughest pitchers to rank for 2026? Let's discuss on Fantasy Baseball Today Express. Welcome in to FBT Express on Friday, October 10th. I am Frank Sanford, joined by Chris Towers. Let's take a look at some of the toughest pitchers to rank for 2026. It's very early on in the process here, but these are some names that have caught our eyes so far. And first up is Zack Wheeler, who is a Hall of Fame caliber pitcher, but he just had recently thoracic outlet decompression surgery back in September. Chris, right now, everything is up in the air with Zack Wheeler.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really scary injury at the end of this season. He was dealing with a blood clot in his shoulder. They did the thoracic outlet surgery on a vein, I believe, which is different than most, which are usually nerve-based injuries, and we just don't really know what to expect from this. If he hits his best case scenario in terms of the timetable, it's not out of the question Zack Wheeler could be pitching by the start of spring training. I don't know if you should bet on the best case scenario for a procedure like this, especially when you're talking about a 35-year-old. So there's a part of me that wants to just say, forget it. We don't bother with Zack Wheeler. It's going to be more of a headache than it's worth. But if you bet right, and he's, I don't know, the 40th pitcher taken in your draft, and he's 90% as good as he's been for the past 5 years, it's going to be one of the best picks anyone makes in fantasy this year. So it's truly one where, we start our rankings process now. I've got some way too early rankings already on the site. I think Scott's going through that process now. Frank, you're just starting it, but this is one that we'll have a much better sense of in about 6 months. Ask me in 5 months. 5 months. Ask me about 5 months from now where I'm going to rank Zack Wheeler, and I might have a better answer then.
Let's take a look at Framber Valdez, who had himself a really rough second half. He's also a free agent, so will he be back in Houston, where he's so comfortable it's the only place he's pitched in his career, or will he have a new home? I think those are legitimate questions here for Framber Valdez.
And in his instance, Framber Valdez is someone who has talked a lot about having to control his emotions on the field, and he's worked with sports psychologists over the past couple of years. He's been very open about just how a lot of the times as a pitcher, he struggled to overcome when things go wrong for him. And, that comfort level might just lead him right back to Houston, although they have been very comfortable letting their star players walk in recent years. So I don't know if that will continue, but it's his worst season since 2019 in terms of ERA. He turns 32 in just over 2 months. We saw the strikeout rate and walk rate move in the wrong direction for the second season in a row, and he especially struggled in that second half. I don't know. I've liked Framber Valdez a lot over the past couple seasons as a really stable floor raiser for a pitching staff, someone you can count on to give you 190 innings of good enough ratios and strikeouts. If he's not a safe bet this year, I'm not really sure he's a bet I want to make. I have him ranked outside of my top 24. SPs for 2026 right now.
Chris, Blake Snell is someone that you've had an interesting relationship with in fantasy over the past couple of years. We know that he's uber talented. He's won 2 Cy Young Awards, but he has struggled to stay on the field, and that could be the case again next year.
Yeah, I mean, he only threw, 55 innings this season, so you would think his price is going to go down, except he threw 76 fewer innings in 2024 than he did in 2023 with a higher ERA, and his price went up about 18 picks on average. So I look at the Blake Snell marketplace, the last 5 seasons, the ADP is 53, 71, 116, 118, 46. He's been all over the place as a pitcher, so I get it, but it also feels like we know who Blake Snell is. And for me, it's less where do I rank Blake Snell and more where do I rank Blake Snell relative to everyone else? Because everyone else was way too high on him coming into 2025. Maybe there's an overreaction. Maybe his price drops a ton, and then I'll be in on him as like the 20th or 23rd starting pitcher in my rankings. I can see a case for him being higher. I can see a case for just wanting to not take the ride at all, and I think that's the biggest thing with Blake Snell. if you're going to draft him at all, no matter what the price is, you have to understand it's not going to be fun the whole time. There are going to be times when he's miserable to watch and blows up your ratios for a few weeks, and you just got to know that about yourself, whether you can stomach it with Blake Snell.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more right after this.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it?
Can you handle it? The crowd here feels electric.
Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount+.
Welcome back in to FBT Express, taking a look at some pitchers who will be pretty tough to rank for 2026. Next up, we have Mets prospect Nolan McLean, who was amazing down the stretch. The question here is just how much will it rise? Because he looks so good, but there's also a lack of a track record here at the major league level.
Yeah, the comp I've made a few times is to Logan Webb in the way that Nolan McLean pitches. He's a sinker baller, has multiple swing and miss pitches, including four-seamer that he uses mostly in strikeout situations, and it was really good for him. And it's also, ground ball pitcher. There's a lot of inherent volatility in ground ball pitchers. His command is not great. So, when you look at Logan Webb, he's someone who has really cemented himself as a solid SP2. And I think Nolan McLean has that upside. Coming off an 8-start stretch to start his career where he had 2.06 ERA, given all the hype that's going to build around him, I could see him getting pushed up the way someone like Spencer Schwellenbach was in 2025 drafts, where he ended up being like a top 15 SP in some drafts. That'll be hard to stomach for me. McLean was someone I ranked, it was closer to like 36, closer to 40. Even looking at that now, it feels pretty low, although you'll see this, Frank, when you go through it. It's a lot of good pitchers in 2026. Yeah. So I don't know how much higher I can push him up, and that makes it sound like I'm just not going to be on a Nolan McLean in 2026.
Another good pitcher is Trevor Rogers. He was a true league winner, perhaps the biggest league winner as a free agent ad in June or July, whenever it was, finished with a sub-2 ERA. The questions, and there are many, he struggled mightily before this kind of resurgence here with the Orioles. Now he did have a velocity uptick, and he changed some things, and he looked very effective down the stretch. The question is, how much do we trust it, and how high does he go in drafts next season?
Yeah, part of what I'm struggling with Trevor Rogers is the things that he improved the most on were like the quality of contact he allowed and throwing strikes. And those are things that tend to be a lot more volatile from year to year. Strikeout rate tends to be a lot more predictable. And his was good, but not quite as good as it was back when he looked like a big up-and-comer in 2021. But the thing that's really tripping me up about Trevor Rogers is even the Orioles had no idea he was going to be this good. And I say that with a lot of confidence because they called him up for a spot start in late May. He tossed 6 2/3 shutout innings against the Red Sox, tough matchup. And they sent him back to AAA and didn't call him up again for 3 more weeks as their season continued to slip away. They finally call him up because they're desperate, and he's the best pitcher in baseball from that point on. Look, it's not like the Orioles are always right about everything. I think when it comes to pitching, especially, they've gotten a lot wrong over the past few years. But I don't know. He was terrible at AAA last year. He was terrible at AAA before he got called up. And then he goes on this, 18, 20 start run where he's arguably the best pitcher in baseball. I buy him being better than he was pre-2025. I don't think I buy him as like a top. Is he a top 50 pitcher? I think I can get him to top 50. Top 40? That's a little riskier for me, yeah.
Last name on this list is Cade Horton of the Cubs, who had a monster second half. He has the prospect pedigree as well. Also comes with an extensive injury history, and now's a good time to mention that he missed the end of the season and has missed the playoffs to this point with a fractured rib, which is kind of fluky. It's not an arm-related injury, but for all the reasons I mentioned, I could see Cade Horton being a polarizing pitcher for next season.
Yeah, we talked a little bit on the the full episode of FBT on Wednesday night about Spencer Schwellenbach and the big innings jump that he had from 2023 when he threw like 65 innings, 2024 when he threw 168. Well, Cade Horton threw 34 innings in 2024. He threw 88 the previous year, so not a big sample size either season. He ended up with 147 innings this season. That's a 113 inning jump without anything in the postseason. So if nothing else, I just think there's a lot of risk of injury for Cade Horton that you have to bake in. But then I think there's a ton of performance risk. He had a 2.67 ERA for the season, 3.93 xERA, 4.27 xFIP. He had outrageously good results on balls in play, 258 BABIP, 7.3% home run to fly ball rate. Not a great strikeout pitcher, although I think he has the stuff to grow into one. The thing I would say is to be drafted as a top 50 starting pitcher, even, I think Cade Horton just has to get better. But based on what he showed this year, I don't have a lot of faith that he's going to be a top 50 pitcher without taking into account the injury risk that we talked about. So I can't see Cade Horton being someone that's anything more than like a late an end of rotation arm for me in fantasy.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more upside there with the secondary pitches for Cade Horton. You know, he had fantastic whiff rates on his breaking stuff, but he just continuously threw his fastball so much, over 50% of the time. To his credit, he didn't have to throw much different or change much because it was working for him in the second half. But I wonder if he tweaks that pitch mix, perhaps we could see a little bit more swing and miss here in Cade Horton's game. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today Express, and we will be back again next week. Bye-bye.